So waiting to go live. So waiting to go live.
Even Jesus wasn't one-sided.
I think I'm live. Okay. That was the actual commentary of what I actually want to discuss today coming up right there. So, can you hear me? Just let me see if I can see, because I'm streaming. There I am, so I can see that. I just want to get my okay, see if there's any comments. So I'm going through Zoom. Okay, so what I want to talk about today. Everyone's arguing about good and evil right now, about whether evil exists, about whether everything is just an event. And I think we are arguing the wrong thing. And I'm not saying that lightly. I'm saying that, and I'm speaking today from the perspective of somebody who was chronically abused from infancy. So I'm not speaking theoretically. And I listened to the conversation between Aubrey, Marcus, and Dr. John Demartini. There's been a lot of commentary about it. It's intense, it's uncomfortable, and it's important. But what struck me wasn't who was right. It was that they were speaking at different layers. And when you collapse layers, you get explosion. And that's what we saw. It reveals something bigger than a disagreement about good and evil. And because they're speaking at different layers, the debate feels explosive. Because on the one side, you have the position that there is no such thing as evil, and that everything is an event, and that the work is to find the hidden order, the blessing, the upside. And on the other side, you have the position that there is something in us that recoils, that protects, that draws a line and says, no, this is wrong. And at one point, Dr. John Demartini says, there's no such thing as evil. And later, he says there are upsides to the murder of children. And Marcus responds, I draw the line. And he says, there is something fundamental inside of us that knows this is wrong. And that moment right there is where the world split. This is not a small disagreement. This is not a semantic difference. That's rupture in worldview. And if you feel something in your body hearing those words, that's part of what this debate is touching. And both those positions make sense at the layer that they are speaking from. But they're not arguing the same thing. When Demartini says there's no such thing as evil, he is speaking about what happens after an event. How the mind metabolizes experience, how perception reshapes suffering. And when Marcus says, I draw the line, he is speaking about something that happens before or during an event, the instinct to intervene, to protect, to stop harm. And they're very different. They are different layers of reality. Psychological integration is not the same thing as social governance. Metaphysics is not the same thing as protection. So one is speaking about integration after something has happened, and the other is speaking about intervention before something happens. When Demartini says there are upsides, he is speaking about what happens after the event, how the psyche metabolizes what has occurred. When Marcus says, I draw the line, he is speaking about stopping something before it continues. Different layers of reality. And when we collapse those layers into one philosophical argument, we create confusion, and that's what happened. But even that isn't the deepest issue. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Because this isn't just a disagreement about evil. This debate is sitting on top of something much larger that's happening right now in the spiritual and philosophical world right now. And that is the idea of non-duality itself is being tested. We've seen it in spiritual scandals, in bypass language, and in the collapse of moral authority. And this is what matters, because for me, the real issue isn't duality. It's not even non-duality. It's that both of those frameworks are incomplete. Duality says there is good, there is evil. We must choose. Non-duality says there is no good, there is no evil, it's all one. That's what's being implied when we hear it's just an event or evil doesn't exist. But notice that statement only exists in reaction to the very polarity it's trying to dissolve. But non-duality is still defined by duality. It's a reaction to it. Dual, non-dual, good, no good, evil, no evil. It's still binary. It's still a binary structure. It's still orbiting the same axis. And this is why the debate feels stuck. Because both positions are inside the same frame. One affirms the polarity, the other denies it, and neither leaves it. And for me, what changed everything in my life was not choosing a side in that polarity. It was stepping beyond it. And when I say beyond duality, and this is the important part, I don't mean denying harm. I don't mean pretending everything is love either. And I don't mean spiritually bypassing. I mean something very, very, very simple. Events occur. Distortion expresses through human beings. And I do not need to build an identity or build my identity around either the event or the distortion. I was chronically abused for decades. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, systematically. It was violent, it was invasive. It was distortion moving through distorted individuals. And yes, it was bad. And I can say that without any drama. It was chronically bad. But here's what I discovered. If I turn it into evil, I build identity around opposition. And this is where I differ from both of them, from Marcus and Demartini. I move somewhere slightly different. I don't need to extract a blessing from what happened or what happened to me. And I don't need to declare it cosmic evil either. If I turn it into a blessing, I build identity around justification. If I turn it into my trauma story, I build identity around distortion. And each one of those positions keeps the event alive as an organizing principle. And I didn't want to live organized around what happened. So I stopped asking what it meant. I stopped asking whether it was evil. I stopped asking whether it made me stronger. It was a series of events inflicted by seriously distorted individuals. That's it. And I refuse to let their distortion become my architecture. This is not dissociation. Dissociation is when you leave your body. But what I'm describing is the opposite. I am fully in my body, fully in life, fully capable of joy, pleasure, love, intensity, creativity. I'm not numb, I'm not detached, I'm not above it. I simply do not let the narrative of distortion distort me. That is beyond duality. It's not saying harm is fine. It's not saying that everything is sacred. It's saying distortion exists, coherence exists, and I choose coherence, not morally, but structurally. There's a difference between calling something evil and intervening in it. You do not need to believe in evil to stop harm. You can stop someone from hurting a child without constructing a metaphysical enemy. Intervention is behavioral and evil is narrative. Intervention does not require cosmic judgment. You stop harm because it destabilizes life. You intervene because coherence matters. You protect because visibility or viability matters. That does not require hatred. It doesn't require cosmic judgment. It doesn't require metaphysical certainty. And on the other side, you don't need to deny harm to be free. You can fully acknowledge, yes, this happened. Yes, it was violent. And yes, it caused impact. And still refuse to let it define your perception of reality. And this is where I think the debate missed something essential. Integration after harm is powerful. Finding perspective is powerful. Helping someone see meaning in their experiences can be transformative. But governance is also real. And protection is real. And when Marcus says there is something fundamental inside of us that recoils, he's not talking about a moral indoctrination. The instinct to shield a child is not primitive stupidity. And when Demartini says that our moral labeling is often amygdala reaction, he's also not entirely wrong at a different layer. It is biological intelligence preserving coherence. Those are different layers. And when we mix them, we create unnecessary polarity in that context. Beyond duality does not erase polarity. It contextualizes it. At the level of human behavior, polarity operates. People act, they harm, they help, they distort, and they protect. At the level of perception, we can hold both without collapsing. At the level of being, we do not need to build identity around either. And that is the shift. And that's what was missed. That was what was missed. Beyond duality allows you to see more. When you're not locked into this is evil, you're not blinded by rage. And when you're not blocked into this is perfect, you're not blinded by bypass. You see the mechanics, you see distortion as distortion, and then you see coherence as coherence. And you respond appropriately. Living beyond duality does not mean passivity, and it does not mean neutrality. It means you're not psychologically captured by the event. You are not narratively enslaved by what occurred. You're not internally replicating the distortion. And that's freedom. And I want to say something very clearly. You do not have to call what happened to you evil to validate that it was harmful. And you do not have to call it sacred to transcend it. You can let it be what it was, a series of events, and live undistorted now. That is not cold. It is not spiritual. This is not self-development. It's structural sanity. Because distortion tries to replicate itself. That's what abuse does. It attempts to create more distortion. And the moment I refused to become organized around it, I stopped replicating, it stopped replicating, or I stopped replicating it, but it stopped replicating through me. If someone harms you and you become organized around harm, distortion wins. If someone harms you and you become obsessed with proving evil exists, distortion still organizes you. And if someone harms you and you deny it happened, distortion still governs you. The only freedom, the only real freedom, is coherence. And the thing about coherence, it does not need a narrative to survive. So maybe the question is not, does evil exist? Maybe the question is, at what layer are we speaking? Are we speaking about intervention, integration, metaphysics, psychology? Because when we flatten all of that into one binary argument, we lose nuance. And that's what happened in that discussion. We lose clarity. And duality traps you in reaction. Non-duality traps you in negation. Beyond duality allows you to live fully in life, not dissociated, not morally inflamed, not spiritually inflated, just clear. Events happen, distortion expresses, coherence remains available. Always. And you get to choose which one organizes you. And for me, literally, that was the difference between surviving and living. And that is why I think we're arguing the wrong thing. Not because good and evil don't matter, but because the frame we're using to discuss them is too small. Maybe we don't need to decide whether evil exists. The outrage around the phrase, the upside of the murder of children, tells us something. It tells us how quickly we collapse layers into one. I don't claim to have all the final answers on evil. I'm not trying to settle the metaphysics. I'm speaking about what allowed me to live. And it makes sense. And maybe we need to understand that identity built on polarity, be it duality or non-duality, is fragile. And freedom built on coherence is stable. That is beyond duality. And that changes everything. So, thank you for joining me. I just wanted to come on here and explain or talk about that. I don't know if there are any questions. Oh, now there's comments coming through now. I've only just seen it now, comments. We can hear you, yes. Refuse to let their distortion become my architecture. Love that. Juliet, yes. Barbara, hello Barbara. This line, refuse to let the distortion become my architecture. Yes, that obviously landed, yes. Language and nurse of my heart. Thank you for articulating, speaking this. You're welcome, Nikki. Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, guys. Let's continue the conversation. If you watch the replay, and you've got a question, you've got a comment, please, let's have this conversation. I think right now this is important. I really do feel that right now this conversation is important because there is so much going on right now and it's bringing out a lot of stuff. So by all means, let's continue the conversation. Thank you for joining me. Have a beautiful day.